have you been given feedback that you lack executive presence? If so, you are not alone. I have been there myself, and I wanted to make this video to try to help you because this is one of those rules or scenarios that I feel like is a bit of a glass ceiling, especially for women in the workplace. And it feels very unfair to me. And I think that many workplaces don't explain what they mean by executive presence, and then they just give this feedback willy-nilly as a means to prevent women especially, but everyone, from accelerating to the next step in their career. So I'm going to break down exactly how I improved my executive presence in the span of about 30 days and exactly what I did. There's very tactical things, and I hope that somebody watching this gets some value out of it. Maybe you can copy one or two of the things that I did and develop that quote unquote executive presence that you might be missing. All right, so tip number one is just talk more in meetings. The really easy way to do this is right at the beginning of a meeting. So especially if it's on Zoom or MS Teams or Google Meet, as people are joining the meeting, make sure that you're not on mute and just check in. You can ask people how they are. You can ask how their weekend was, or if they're preparing for the next holiday, whatever is seasonally appropriate. Just something social as people are filtering into the room. There's research that shows if you talk within the first few minutes of a meeting, you're much more likely to continue talking later in the call. So it kind of breaks your own ice and will make you feel more comfortable raising your voice later in the call. So that's just a quick hack to make yourself feel more comfortable in the meetings. My tip number two is get to know other leaders in the company one-on-one in more informal settings. So the rationale for this and the reason why I did this is because if you start to see leaders, like people who are at the level that you want to be promoted into or that you want to be seen as equivalent to, if you start to see them as your actual peers, if you talk to them, you have one-on-one friendships or work friendships with them, you are going to, once again, break your own mental glass ceiling. I think that a lot of times people hold themselves back and don't feel comfortable with leaders because they don't talk to them. They don't know what's going on in their lives. And then they feel very stiff and uncomfortable in meetings because they don't have a friendship basis to fall back on. So this will really help your executive presence in meetings when you feel more comfortable. So I definitely recommend trying to get to know those executives or leaders in your company to make yourself feel more comfortable. Then my tip number three. Okay, so this is something that a lot of executives do. They will communicate primarily face-to-face. So either in person or on a video call. They do not rely on written communication as the only format, especially for important information. Yes, they will reply to emails, and it's usually a very quick email, if you notice, from executives. It's very short because they have a lot of emails coming into them. But they're primarily, when they send out communication, when they want to be understood, they are communicating verbally. So to improve your executive presence, you need to communicate verbally as well. Don't rely on email. So if you send an email and you expect the other person to have read it, fully understand all the nuances of it, I am sorry, you're going to be disappointed. More often than not, people don't read the email, or maybe they read 30% of it, or maybe they just didn't understand it. They read it, but they don't understand it, or they have questions. So if you have an important message, make sure that you schedule a meeting or several meetings with your intended audience to make sure that you communicate and hear back from them that they have understood it and they have asked their questions for clarification. Otherwise, you can just assume that they don't get it. Okay. Tip number 4 is talk about strategic topics. So for executives, so they're talking on the level of why should we do something and what should we do, not the how. So try to leave aside the how outside of your meetings, unless it is a meeting that is specifically set up to address the how. But for the most part, when you're having meetings, try to stay at the level of why and what. So I guess that's an easy way to think about it. Why and what, and leave aside the how. Yes, the how needs to be figured out, but that's something that maybe you can think about on your own time. make a proposal, etc. But if you're only talking about the how, you're not going to be seen as a leader. All right. Tip number 5 is dress like how your leaders dress. So they might be wearing a collared shirt. Cool. Then you can kind of match that level of dress and try to wear that. Maybe it's at a tech company and all your leaders are wearing t-shirts. Then cool, wear t-shirts. Or if you're at like a bank in New York City and everyone's wearing a full suit, then you need to be wearing that as well. So especially if there's a different dress code implicitly between what leaders wear in your company and what individual contributors wear, then just start dressing like how the leaders wear. And you're going to be seen by people in the company more like a leader. All right, tip number 6 is tell more stories. I don't mean a random story about partying over the weekend. I mean, ideally customer stories. So no matter what department you're in, I'm primarily talking to people in tech companies, but I think this applies outside of tech as well. If you understand the customer and you can tell a story about having talked to a customer or having visited a customer, and you know what their context is, and you know their emotional background and the transformation that they're looking for and their experience using your product, you will be seen in a greater leadership light. And the reason for that is that people are hardwired to understand stories and not data. So if you're getting bogged down into data, you're going to be implicitly labeled as a less senior person than if you are telling a narrative story. So yeah, just lean into that. I know it's a little bit counterintuitive, and a lot of people think, oh, I need to be really heavy in the quant side to be seen as a leader, but I would actually advocate for the reverse and really emphasize storytelling and close relationships with customers in order to raise your internal visibility. All right, tip number 7 is don't talk too long. Say your thing and then be quiet and let the room absorb what you have said. This is important for when you're asking a question. You can just ask the question and then wait. You don't have to ask it 5 times. Some people are very uncomfortable with silence. And I think that leaders have a way of not being afraid of it. If you think about leaders, they will often say something and then wait and they pause and then they let the room react. And maybe other people then are going to raise a question or a comment. And I think that more junior people start blabbing because they're uncomfortable letting their voice settle over the room, or they think they won't be heard. And so that internal doubt seeps through, and then they fill the gap with more talking. So just basically try to be succinct. If you struggle with this, a tool that I have helped to develop is called equaltime.io. And this is really helpful for monitoring your own speaking time. It monitors everyone else's speaking time and it does a bunch of other stuff. But the really helpful piece for this is if you are talking too much and you want to reduce your own over talking, try to use this in your online meetings, and then you'll be able to monitor your own talk time and limit it. It's a nice, easy way to monitor that. All right. And then my tip number 8 is be confident that you belong in the room. This is something that particularly women face a lot of struggles with. They worry that they don't belong there, that no one wants to hear what they have to say. But rest assured that you would not be there in the company. They would not have hired you if they didn't want you to be talking and to have your voice heard. So believe in yourself, and others will start to believe in you as well. I hope that's helpful. We also have an executive presence playbook that you can download for free. It'll be linked in the description. And as I mentioned, check out Equal Time. It offers AI coaching on your meetings to improve your executive presence and the speaking time tracking that I mentioned. So thanks for your time, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.